Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel and the third episode of the tropical house in Tiki Town, which is located in my zoo named Löchensee Zoo. In this episode, we will continue to improve the building itself, and then we will be building the habitat for the adorable little wombat, including inside, outside and backstage area. So let's get started. So welcome to the third episode and almost the last episode. There will only be one more episode till we finish the tropical house. And today we will be building the doors for this building. Finally, we didn't have any doors yet, so it was major time to finally build some for this building because it looked really odd without any doors in there. And since we were doing the windows in the last episode where we also did the quokka habitat, it was time to manage the doors. And in the last episode, where we will also be building the last habitat in this building, we will do the roof, and the roof will be the final step to this building before we can call it finished. Similar to the windows, I was looking for inspiration from like vintage classic doors, because simply coming up with a creative idea to make a door fitting for this just out of my head would have been like too much. I am no architect or something like that, so coming up with something completely out of my mind is always a little bit hard when it comes to buildings, windows, doors, details on the buildings. So I definitely still need to learn a lot more about these things, but we are getting along, and honestly just taking inspiration and trying to rebuild it or something like from real life. I'm not rebuilding things from other creators, but I am using like real life inspiration, and trying to rebuild those is honestly such a good way to learn how to build things, what pieces to use, and just trying stuff out. And then you don't really need to be super creative when it comes to designing the door itself, but you can improve your way of building the things and start using different pieces and completely concentrate on how to build the store and not how to design the store, if you know what I mean. Of course, I wanted to make the door as cohesive to the building and the windows as possible, so I was using similar pieces like these limestone pieces that look very like classic and vintage, so I used those. And then I saw a inspiration picture from a really old vintage door with also like white stone around it. I'm not sure if it is limestone, but something similar. And then it was like a dark wooden door. It was a little bit more detailed than I did it, but we don't really have that many super small wooden pieces. So I tried to keep it a little bit more simple. So I used the limestone around and this dark wooden door. And I also wanted to include this stained glass on top. I just really love the look of stained glass, like in real life and also of course on Planet Zoo. And I just really love it, and it gives like an instant vintage vibe. So I definitely had to use it, and I just incorporated it. Even though it was not in my inspiration, but I still use it, and I really love the outcome. And then I also added a few little golden details like they were on my picture, and of course normal door handles, which I DIY'd pretty quickly with just a handful of pieces. And then the door was already complete, and I just needed to fit it to the building itself. And then now it looks just so much better with finally a door in it. My vision is finally coming to life when I first envisioned the building itself. So it's really nice to see it all come together nicely one after another. I also did custom stairs leading up to the door, because the stairs from the pathing that is leading up just didn't quite fit to like the size and just generally the look doesn't look too cohesive, so I quickly also DIY'd some stairs just to make it look a little bit more neat. And then the entrance and also the exit, they look just the same because you can entry and exit the building from both sides, so they just look the same, and I really love the look of it, and I hope you love it too. Besides me making the doors for this building, I didn't really do any more major improvements to the building itself. As I said, I will be doing the roof in the last episode, which will be the next one. And I might do more smaller improvements within the building and maybe on the facade once I have all the habitats finished, so that I just can like do some final touches to the building once everything is set, and then the building will be finished. As you are seeing this video right now, the next episode on my channel will actually not be the 4th episode of the tropical house, simply because the Barnyard Animal Pack is going to be released on the 30th of April, which will be Tuesday. This episode will be released on Friday beforehand, so the next Friday will already be when the Barnyard DLC is released. So of course I need to build something for the new DLC, so the 4th episode actually has to wait a little bit more before we can finish this building, so that I can build beautiful things for the Barnyard DLC. And I actually wanted to talk a little bit more about the DLC now, before we will start to talk about the wombats. If you maybe have seen my video about me speculating for the next DLC, if it will be the next DLC, what my personal dream pack would be, and what I realistically think is going to happen. If you haven't seen that video, you can definitely check that out. But basically, I was wishing for a petting zoo DLC. And now Frontier actually releasing basically a petting zoo DLC. I was honestly a little bit flabbergasted when I saw the trailer and when I saw the announcement, because I was like, there's absolutely no way that Frontier just released that. Like, I didn't really expect it. Of course I was wishing for it. This was like my number one wishlist DLC. Of course, there are also a lot of other ideas and tropical animals that would be great to have in the game, but I feel like a petting zoo was just missing. Just very simple animals like goats and chickens and ducks. Well, we don't get ducks, but I wished for ducks. But I feel like it was just missing to have some simple animals, to have something where the guests can actually walk through and pet the animals, and to have like these really cliche type of animals within the zoo, because we were just missing those. And I really love it. I know that the community is a little bit split when it comes to the Barnyard DLC. At least that's what I have seen and heard, and what my feeling is. I feel like a lot of people like the newest DLC, especially for the reason that I just said, for like having these really basic petting zoo animals, and also the new mechanics of the guests actually interacting with the animals. But I know that a lot of people were a little bit disappointed, because I feel like a lot of people just adore tropical, or not really tropical, but exotic animals. Let's say exotic animals. So of course having goats, chickens, pigs, and a sheep and all the other animals are not like super exciting, because they are not something super tropical that you don't see really often, which is just extremely interesting to look at, and to learn more about the animal, where it is coming from, how it is behaving and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know, I really like the pack. But I know that a lot of people don't really like the pack, so definitely let me know what you personally think about this one. And also, as I'm now recording the voiceover for this video, the Frontier Unlocked live stream was just happening like an hour or two ago as I'm recording this voiceover. And if you haven't seen the live stream or heard anything about it yet, they just said like in 1-2 sentences that the Barnyard DLC is not the last one, and they are currently working on another animal pack. So it is confirmed that we will get at least one more pack, and it is going to be an animal pack. And probably like all of the other Planet Zoo players, I am super happy that Planet Zoo will have more DLCs this year. If it will be one or maybe even more, I don't know. But I am just extremely happy that there will be at least one more. I just hope that they continue to make DLCs as long as possible, because I cannot stop wishing for any more, and I just love all the new animals, new building pieces, and new like ways to interact with the animals. For example, when they added the viewing domes, now the guests can actually interact with the animals. We didn't really see a lot of the guests actually interacting with them. You can only see like a second, or not the second, but maybe like 5 seconds of a guest like leaning down and trying to pet a goat. This is all that we saw within the trailer. So I am excited to see how the guests will actually interact with the animals, and if they will feed them, if they will pet them. And I'm also excited to know which animals will be able to interact with the guests. I think that probably all of the new animals will do so. Maybe not the chickens, but possibly all the other animals. And we saw in a screenshot that the lemurs can also interact with the guests. So I'm really excited to know which of the older animals will also be able to interact with them. I possibly think that for example, the quokka would also be a great candidate to get this mechanic. But other than that, there's probably like plenty of those. Or maybe not, like I'm not sure. Let me know what you think, how many or what animals would be great for the guests to be actually pet. So now that we know that the Barnyard Animal Pack will be released on the 30th, which is Tuesday, the next video will be for the Barnyard Animals, or the next upcoming videos. I am not quite sure how many there will be, because I didn't really plan anything yet, like any major plans on how to build things. I was already gathering some inspiration for the petting zoo area that I will do, but I don't know how many habitats there will be. I am thinking of cohabiting some of the animals, so I don't know quite yet how many episodes there will be for the Barnyard Animal Pack. But you can be 100% for sure that there will be episodes for those animals. And as I said, I will be doing a petting zoo area for my zoo. I am so stoked to finally be able to do this. So we will be pausing Tiki Town for a little bit till we finish the little petting zoo section. It will be only, or most likely only, the barnyard animals, so a maximum of 8 animals, and I will possibly cohab some of them. So there will be a handful of episodes of me building the petting zoo section, and then we will continue with Tiki Town once we finish that one, in hopes that the next DLC after the barnyard will not come too early, because I just really wish to finally finish Tiki Town, to have like one complete section finished of the zoo. So that would be great. Then I will be doing a little walkthrough of this whole section. I am really excited to do this because I've never done a walkthrough of any section of a zoo, because I basically never finished a zoo, or even just a complete section that is on its own. So I'm really excited to finally be doing this in a couple more episodes for the Tiki Town, and to also show you some things that you maybe haven't seen in any of the episodes yet that I did for all of the animals in this area. So my plan for now is that we will pause this project, do the petting zoo area, come back to Tiki Town, do a walkthrough of this whole section to do like to finally finish this whole section and also the episodes for this Tiki Town, and then we can finally start building another area in the zoo, which will be another biome, and I am really excited to finally start new biomes, and we will see what the next DLC this year will be. So yeah, I'm just extremely excited what will come. And I think we have actually talked enough about the next DLC for now, because it will be in 1 week. When you see this on a release day, this video, it will be 1 more week till you can finally see the first episode of me building something for the barnyard animals. So definitely stay tuned and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the videos for those cute little petting zoo animals. So now finally talking about the wombat that we have been building in this video. As I said, the wombat will get a outside area, inside, and a backstage area, similar to the quokkas. The quokkas are right to the left side when you look at their outside area. And I tried to make it relatively cohesive, so it will look pretty similar, but with a little bit of a twist. And the twist is basically that the wombat lives in a grassland area, like naturally where it is occurring in Australia. So for me personally, it was really important to make it as natural as possible, so that meant a ton of grass. And as you have seen, we've already placed a lot of grass in this video, and I've placed even more outside of the footage that you've seen. So there are a ton of grass patches in this habitat, but I tried to make it really lush to resemble the grassland habitat where the wombat is naturally coming from. But on the other hand, I read when I was researching on how to build a proper wombat habitat that they are really like destructive. So you can't really have any like plants and bushes in this habitat because they simply destroy a lot. So it was a little bit hard for me to make it look cohesive to the quokka habitat, which is like really green and lush, and to also resemble a grassland, because obviously in nature they can't destroy every plant that is around them, but of course in a limited space, as a habitat in a zoo is, they can destroy a lot. So on one hand, I needed to make it look very green and lush. On the other hand, I wanted to make it as realistic for a zoo as possible, so that meant no major plants and bushes within reach of the wombats. And so I came up with the idea to have this little planter that you see really close to the glass, where I would use a little bit more of plants and bushes so that the habitat doesn't look too bare and just too naked and just lots of grass. And then of course in the very back, as the background, we have the stone wall, and then on top we also have more plants to make it look more green. And then I of course use a huge amount of grasses and also some other smaller plants that are similar to like grass, but also not really like bushes. And I also try to include them like in between the little rock piles that we have in the edges and on the corners. So like this area the wombats wouldn't be able to access like really good, and they probably wouldn't hang out a lot in this area where it would be a little bit hard for them to access, because they would need to crawl over the rocks. So I included a little bit more of like longer grasses and bush like plants in these areas to make it look a little bit more green. So that was basically my technique to make it look green but not make it too lush at the same time, if you know what I want to say. So I hope you really like the outcome. Let me know in the comments how you think I managed to do so. And then I also had to rearrange the habitat a little bit because I placed down the wombat within the habitat at some point, and it just couldn't move around, like just in like one little section, but the wombat couldn't really walk all around the habitat. So I had to rearrange a little bit. You can't really tell in the footage. It was just like a few rocks placing a little bit further away from one another, or removing some smaller rocks. So it's not really noticeable, but yeah, I did it. The traversable area from the wombat is not the worst. It's definitely not the worst. The koala is like worse, but it's also not the best. I mean, the wombat is quite a big chunk bigger than the quokka, for example, and also older, so it makes sense that the traversable area is worse. But in such a limited space as I have for this habitat, it is definitely a little bit trickier to make everything work out the way I wanted to. If you have like a bigger area where you can build a bigger habitat, to also have bigger areas where the wombat can actually move around in, it is definitely not a problem to do something for them. But as I said, I have a really limited space in this building or around the building for the wombat, so I just had to make it fit somehow. I definitely managed to do this without making it too bare or anything. As you can see, the wombat can still move around in a good part of the habitat, not really like in the corners or too close to the rocks, but all in all it can use all of the habitat. So I'm really happy with the result, and also how they can move around in the habitat. So yeah, I definitely don't want to say anything bad about the wombat and the traversable area. The indoor area is actually designed very similar to the outside area. Of course, I did it very simple, made it really look like a grassland. We don't have any huge plants in the indoor area for the wombats. I also did like some small planters in the background, so it looks a little bit more lush and not too bare. But other than that, there's just a lot of grass, some rocks, and some like these small bush or grass type of plants. They're like something in between. I'm not quite sure if they're considered grasses or bushes, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. And then of course I also use some logs and stuff like that. Also, as a little side fun fact about the wombat, you might have already heard about this, but maybe not the reason. The wombat lives in a grassland, and if you might know, the wombat actually poops in cubes. So it doesn't poop like other animals, like in little round poops, but in cubes. And the fact is funny enough itself, but the reason why they poop in cubes is because they live in a grassland. There's not a lot of foliage around them, not many trees and bushes. It is pretty windy in the areas that they live in. And in order to mark the territory with their poops, they poop in cubes so they don't get blown away by the wind. And Mother Nature just came up with a completely like weird way for the wombat, but it's such like a cool and funny and weird fact. I don't know, I just love it, and I don't think I've ever talked that much about poop, but whatever. But besides the fact itself, and that we know why they do this, or like they don't like do this because they choose to, but because they're just built like that, I could say. We as humanity still do not know how they poop in cubes. We know why, but not how, and that's, as far as I know, still a secret how they do it and how they manage to do it. So yeah, I just love this fact, and the wombat itself is extremely cute, but having this absolutely random fact about them makes them like 10 times better, honestly. But enough of the poop talk, finally. We have built quite a lot while I was talking. So basically, as you see, we have the outdoor area. Then we have the indoor area in between that can be separated in two little stalls. So technically the two wombats, which are a male and a female, can be separated either within the indoor area itself, or like one wombat could have access to only the outdoor and indoor area and the, or let's say the backstage area, and the other one to the indoor area and also the little backstage stall. So there's plenty of options to separate the animals, or to only have one out in the enclosure and maybe one only on the inside if it would be like sick, for example, or hurt. So there's plenty of options. And also, of course, you should always have an option to separate male and female animals from one another. It definitely depends on the species. But as far as I know, for wombats, it is a pretty good option. You should only keep a male and a female together. And then, of course, you can make sure to separate them. For example, also if the female wombat would have cubs. I'm not quite sure if they're called cubs for wombats. We just gonna call them like that. So you can separate the male from the little family. So yeah, I tried to include as many like realistic things to the habitat, same as the metal covers to the little wooden separation, so that the wombats cannot destroy or duck under the wood and get into the other enclosures. So there's a lot of thought behind my build in this one, actually. We are almost at the very end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and that you love the way I designed the habitat for the adorable chunky wombat. If you did, please leave a like to support me a little bit, and if you don't want to miss any videos that are coming up about Tiki Town and of course of the new barnyard animal pack, please consider to subscribe to don't miss any videos about my habitats. Don't close this video yet, because there are more cinematic shots to come from the habitat, so you can see more of the details of this habitat. And I hope to see you in the next episode. Until then, bye guys!